In 1587, 115 men, women, and children arrived at Roanoke Island off the coast of North Carolina, fueled by the hope of establishing the first permanent English settlement in the New World. Their leader, John White, returned to England for supplies just weeks after their arrival, leaving behind his daughter and his newborn granddaughter, Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas. When White finally returned 3 years later, delayed by the Spanish Armada, he was met with a silence so profound it chilled him to the bone. The settlement was not just abandoned, it was dismantled.
The houses had been taken down, not burned or destroyed. The only clue left behind was a single word carved into a heavy wooden post of the fort: Croatoan. A shorter carving, CRO, was etched into a nearby tree. There were no signs of a struggle, no bodies, and no scorched earth from a raid.
This is not just a ghost story. It is a forensic impossibility that has haunted American history for over 4 centuries. How does an entire community, including infants and livestock, disappear without leaving a single drop of blood or a spent arrow? The logical mind seeks answers in migration or conflict, but the cold truth is that none of the surrounding tribes ever reported an influx of English settlers, and modern DNA testing has failed to provide a definitive link to any local populations. John White's desperate search for his family ended in failure, leaving us with a mystery that seems to suggest the colonists didn't just move, they were erased from the timeline of history. This is the first ripple in a deeper pattern of anomalies that define the American landscape, a pattern that suggests that some parts of this continent operate under a different set of rules, where the boundary between the known and the unknown is dangerously thin. Move inland, thousands of miles to the high desert of Utah, and the anomalies become even more aggressive and technologically defiant. Skinwalker Ranch, a 512-acre property in the Uinta Basin, has been the site of scientifically documented phenomena that defy every known law of physics. In the 1990s, the Sherman family purchased the ranch, hoping for a peaceful life raising cattle. Instead, they were met with a series of events that would drive them to the brink of insanity. They witnessed cattle mutilations so precise they appeared surgical, organs removed with no blood on the ground and no footprints leading to or from the carcasses. They encountered massive wolf-like creatures 3 times the size of a normal timber wolf, which remained completely unfazed when shot at point-blank range with high-powered rifles. When the Shernans finally sold the ranch to billionaire Robert Bigelow, a team of elite scientists moved in to study the site with state-of-the-art sensors and 24-hour surveillance. They didn't find traditional ghosts. They found microwave signals that caused physical illness, inexplicable magnetic spikes that fried electronics, and portals that appeared on infrared cameras but remained invisible to the naked eye. The data is empirical, captured on hard drives and analyzed in laboratories, yet the conclusion is impossible. One night, a ranch hand watched as a circular craft emerged from a hole in the sky, hovered silently for several minutes, and then vanished. There were no engine noises, no heat signatures, only a void where something solid had been moments before. This leads to a logical pivot. If these events are purely psychological or folklore, why are they triggering multi-million-dollar sensor arrays? The evidence suggests we aren't looking at a haunting, but at a persistent intrusion of an intelligence that is fundamentally unequipped to understand our reality. Or perhaps we are the ones unequipped to understand theirs. While some mysteries manifest as physical intrusions or metallic craft, others exist only as a frequency that bypasses our eyes and strikes directly at the brain. In the small town of Taos, New Mexico, nestled in the shadows of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, approximately 2% of the population is tormented by a low-frequency sound known as the Taos hum.
It is described as the distant, rhythmic idling of a diesel engine, yet no source has ever been identified. Acoustic engineers, physicists, and government researchers have descended on the town with highly sensitive microphones and seismic sensors, but the equipment often picks up absolutely nothing, even while residents, known as hummers, are clutching their heads in pain, suffering from nosebleeds, dizziness, and chronic insomnia. The hum isn't just a noise, it is a physical sensation that seems to vibrate the very bones of those who can hear it. Various theories have been proposed, ranging from secret military transmissions and low-frequency submarine communication to geological tectonic shifts and industrial machinery. However, the data doesn't align with any of these. The hum is selective. It chooses its listeners. In a landmark 1993 study, researchers found that the hum was most audible inside buildings, yet often disappeared the moment the listeners stepped into an open field. This completely contradicts the laws of acoustics.
If a sound is loud enough to cause physical distress and keep people awake at night, it should be easily measurable by a standard decibel meter. The fact that it isn't suggests that the hum may not be an external sound at all, but a direct manipulation of the human nervous system by an unknown environmental factor. Is it a byproduct of the Earth's own magnetic field, or is it a signal being broadcast on a frequency we haven't yet learned to decode? The mystery of the Taos hum is a silent, invisible intruder, but the case of D.B. Cooper is a loud, chaotic, and brazen defiance of reality that took place in the skies above the Pacific Northwest.
On the afternoon of November 24, 1971, a man in a dark suit and wraparound sunglasses carrying a black briefcase boarded Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 in Portland, Oregon. He identified himself as Dan Cooper. Shortly after takeoff, he handed a note to a flight attendant stating that he had a bomb in his briefcase. He demanded $200,000 in negotiable American currency and 4 parachutes. After the plane landed in Seattle and the passengers were exchanged for the ransom, Cooper ordered the pilots to fly toward Mexico City at the lowest possible altitude and speed. Somewhere over the rugged, rain-swept wilderness of Washington and Oregon, Cooper lowered the aft stairs of the Boeing 727 and jumped into the pitch-black, freezing night. He was never seen again. No body was found. No parachute was recovered. For decades, the FBI investigated over 800 suspects, but the trail remained cold until 1980, when an 8-year-old boy found a decaying bundle of $5,800 in ransom money on the banks of the Columbia River at a place called Tina Bar. The bills were still in their original rubber bands, but the serial numbers matched the ransom exactly. The logical assumption is that Cooper died in the jump, but the physics of the money's discovery tell a different story.
Geologists analyzed the silt on the bills and concluded they hadn't been submerged for 9 years. They appeared to have been placed there much more recently. Cooper didn't just escape the law, he escaped the laws of probability. He leaped into a void and left behind a legacy of perfect disappearance that remains the only unsolved hijacking in U.S. aviation history. But perhaps the most concentrated and terrifying zone of the unexplained is the Bridgewater Triangle in southeastern Massachusetts. Covering 200 square miles, this area is a vortex of every paranormal phenomenon imaginable, a place where the rules of nature seem to have been discarded. From UFO sightings and Bigfoot encounters to reports of giant prehistoric birds known as thunderbirds with wingspans of over 15 feet, the triangle has more documented anomalies per square mile than anywhere else in the world. Since the 1970s,
Police officers, seasoned hunters, and ordinary residents have reported seeing glowing orbs that move with intelligent intent through the Hockomock Swamp.
Forensic evidence from cattle mutilations in the area matches the chilling precision found at Skinwalker Ranch. Tongues, eyes, and reproductive organs removed with surgical exactness, leaving no blood and no tracks. The cold truth here is that the soil itself seems to hold a memory of ancient violence. The Hockomock Swamp, which the Wampanoag people called the place where spirits dwell, was the site of some of the bloodiest battles of King Philip's War in the 17th century. Today, the area is haunted by more than just spirits. It is a place where the physical world feels thin, almost translucent.
One witness, a local police officer, reported a black helicopter that made no sound as it flew 20 feet above the tree line, only to vanish into a cloudless sky while he was looking directly at it. There are also reports of pukwudgies, small gray-skinned humanoids from Wampanoag folklore that are said to lure people to their deaths in the Freetown State Forest. While these stories sound like myth, the number of missing persons and unexplained suicides in the Triangle is statistically anomalous. When we look at these 5 stories together, Roanoke, Skinwalker Ranch, the Taos Hum, D.B. Cooper, and the Bridgewater Triangle, a chilling realization begins to emerge. These are not isolated incidents of bad luck or local legends.
They are evidence of a hidden layer of reality that occasionally breaks through our perceived world, leaving behind fragments of data that our science cannot reconcile. The Roanoke settlers left behind a name, Croatoan, which many historians dismiss as a reference to a local tribe. But what if it was something else? What if it was a code or a warning? What if the disappearance wasn't a physical journey to a nearby island, but a transition into the same void that D.B. Cooper jumped into, or the portal that opened over the Uinta Basin? The logical pivot is this. We assume we are the primary residents and masters of this continent, but the data suggest we are sharing it with something else, something that can manipulate sound, light, and the very fabric of space-time. The Taos Hum proves that our biological senses can be hijacked or bypassed. Skinwalker Ranch proves that our most advanced technology can be rendered useless by a superior intelligence. And the Bridgewater Triangle proves that certain geographic locations act as permanent anchors or thin spots for these intrusions. We are dealing with a phenomenon that is both ancient and technologically advanced. Something that operates in the 30% of the world that remains a mystery to us. The ultimate reveal is not about what these entities are, but what they reveal about us. They force us to confront the fact that our understanding of the universe is fundamentally incomplete.
We are like the Roanoke colonists, building our fragile settlements of logic and reason on the edge of a vast, dark forest of the unknown, blissfully unaware of the eyes watching us from the shadows. The cold truth is that these mysteries aren't waiting to be solved by a clever detective or a dedicated scientist. They are waiting for us to stop looking so they can continue their work undisturbed. Because the moment we look away, the void opens again and the next story begins. Whether it is a man in a suit jumping from a plane with a bag of cash or an entire colony vanishing from an island without a trace, the message is the same. The truth is out there, but it is not something you can find in a textbook. The patterns are clear, the evidence is physical, and the silence from the authorities is deafening. We live in a world where we claim to know everything, but it is the things we don't know, the shadows in the swamp, the hum in the desert, and the hole in the sky, that truly define the limits of our existence. The 70% of reality we think we understand is just a shield against the 30% that we can never truly face. The question isn't whether these stories are true. The question is how much longer we can pretend they aren't.